Picture this for a moment. Every night while your body rests, an invisible force is shaping your future, deciding how you think, how you act, and how much you earn, whether you are aware of it or not. Right now, as you sleep, your mind is either building wealth or reinforcing limitation. There is no pause button. Effort. Actions may feel spontaneous, yet they are guided by deeply embedded patterns formed over time. Understanding that the subconscious is always active places responsibility on the individual to become intentional about what is repeatedly thought, felt, and imagined, especially during moments of mental quiet when impressions settle most deeply into the mind. Thoughts repeated consistently shape belief because the mind accepts familiarity as truth, regardless of whether the original idea was accurate or deliberate. When a thought is entertained once, it has little power. But when it is revisited daily, emotionally reinforced, and mentally rehearsed, it begins to feel natural and unquestionable. The subconscious mind does not analyze evidence or debate logic. It learns through repetition and emotional intensity, gradually adopting repeated thoughts as internal facts. Over time, these thoughts form belief systems that influence perception, behavior, and expectations without conscious awareness. A person who repeatedly thinks about scarcity, struggle, or inadequacy begins to interpret situations through that lens, noticing obstacles more than opportunities and hesitation more than possibility. In the same way, repeated thoughts of capability, growth, and abundance condition the mind to expect positive outcomes and to act in alignment with those expectations. Beliefs formed through repetition become automatic filters through which experiences are interpreted, shaping reactions before conscious reasoning has time to intervene. This is why beliefs often feel deeply personal and resistant to change. They are not conclusions reached through logic, but patterns ingrained through mental rehearsal. Repetition strengthens neural pathways, making certain thoughts easier to access and more dominant in decision-making. When a thought is paired with emotion, its impact multiplies, embedding itself more firmly into the subconscious structure of the mind. Over time, these beliefs influence posture, tone, confidence, and persistence, subtly directing actions that align with what the mind accepts as true. Even contradictory evidence is often ignored when it conflicts with established beliefs because the mind seeks consistency rather than accuracy. This process explains why change feels difficult without deliberate mental discipline, as new thoughts must be repeated long enough to replace older patterns. The mind gravitates toward what is familiar, not necessarily what is beneficial, and familiarity is built through repetition. When individuals intentionally repeat empowering thoughts, affirmations, or mental images, they begin to recondition their internal environment, gradually shifting beliefs that once felt permanent. This transformation does not occur suddenly, but through steady reinforcement, where each repetition weakens old assumptions and strengthens new perspectives, subtly reshaping identity, expectation, and behavior in a continuous internal process. Clarity of desire acts as the organizing force of the mind because a clearly defined objective gives direction to thoughts, emotions, and actions. When a desire is vague, the mind has no reference point, and energy becomes scattered across conflicting impulses and unfocused efforts. A definite purpose, however, concentrates mental power, allowing the subconscious to align internal processes toward a specific outcome. The mind responds more effectively to precise images and intentions than to general wishes because clarity provides a mental blueprint that guides perception and decision-making. When an individual knows exactly what they want, the mind begins filtering information differently, highlighting opportunities, ideas, and connections that support that aim, while disregarding distractions that do not. This selective focus is not forced, it occurs naturally, as the subconscious prioritizes experiences aligned with the dominant desire. Clarity also strengthens emotional commitment. T. Transforming casual interest into sustained motivation. Without a defined purpose, effort relies on willpower alone, which is easily exhausted, but with clarity, action becomes self-reinforcing because it feels meaningful. The subconscious mind thrives on specificity, using clear intentions as instructions for organizing, habits, reactions, and long-term planning. A definite desire influences how risks are evaluated, how setbacks are interpreted, and how persistence is maintained under pressure. Challenges are no longer seen as reasons to stop, but as problems to be solved in service of the objective. Clarity of desire also eliminates internal conflict, as competing goals often create hesitation and inconsistency. When the mind commits fully to a single direction, confidence increases because uncertainty decreases. This inner certainty alters behavior in subtle but powerful ways, affecting communication, posture, and decision speed. Over time, consistent clarity builds momentum as repeated actions reinforce belief in the chosen path. The mind begins to expect success not because it is guaranteed, but because the direction is unwavering. This expectation influences choices and behaviors that gradually bring circumstances into alignment with the original intention. Clarity transforms desire from a passive feeling into an active force that quietly governs thought patterns, shapes daily conduct, and influences outcomes through sustained mental alignment and purposeful focus. Emotion acts as the activating force of the mind because it supplies energy, intensity, and urgency to thought, transforming passive ideas into internal commands. A thought without emotion is weak and easily ignored, but when feeling is attached, the mind treats the thought as important and worthy of storage. The subconscious mind responds primarily to emotional signals rather than logic or reasoning, which is why emotionally charged experiences are remembered more vividly and influence behavior more strongly than neutral ones. Emotion gives thoughts weight, depth, and realism, allowing them to penetrate deeper levels of awareness where habits and beliefs are formed. When desire is felt strongly, the mind engages fully, reinforcing focus and persistence without conscious effort. Fear, excitement, confidence, and certainty all act as emotional accelerators, either strengthening limiting patterns or empowering constructive ones depending on their direction. Emotion also determines whether a thought is fleeting or repeated, as feelings naturally draw attention back to the same ideas again and again. This repetition, fueled by emotion, signals the subconscious to treat the thought as significant. Without emotional involvement, affirmations and intentions remain surface level and fail to produce lasting change. Emotion bridges the gap between thought and action by compelling the body to respond automatically through posture, tone, and behavior. It influences motivation, resilience, and the willingness to persist despite difficulty. When a person feels genuine belief or enthusiasm about an idea, action follows more naturally and with less resistance. Emotion also sharpens visualization, making imagined outcomes feel real and attainable rather than distant or abstract. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between actual events and vividly imagined ones if emotion is present, responding to both as genuine experiences. This is why emotionally charged mental imagery can shape confidence and expectation over time. Emotion determines the strength of mental impressions, acting as the adhesive that binds thoughts into long-term memory and belief systems. It also influences perception, causing the mind to interpret events in ways that align with the dominant emotional state. When emotion is deliberately directed toward constructive goals, it amplifies mental focus and reinforces patterns that support growth and achievement. When left unmanaged, emotion can just as silently reinforce doubt or fear. Understanding emotion as the activator of thought places emphasis on feeling as much as thinking, recognizing that lasting mental change occurs when ideas are not only understood intellectually, but experienced internally with conviction and intensity. Habits are formed quietly through repeated actions and thoughts that operate below conscious awareness, making them powerful drivers of behavior without drawing attention to themselves. Unlike dramatic moments of decision, habits develop through small, consistent patterns that feel ordinary and often go unnoticed. The subconscious mind adopts repeated behaviors as defaults, reducing the need for conscious effort and allowing actions to occur automatically. This silent process explains why habits can feel difficult to change, as they are not actively chosen each time, but triggered by familiar cues and internal states. Nighttime routines are especially influential because the mind is more receptive and less guarded, allowing impressions to settle without resistance. What is repeatedly thought, imagined, or felt during quiet moments gradually shapes automatic responses during the day. Habits formed in this way influence productivity, confidence, discipline, and persistence without requiring motivation or force. The subconscious seeks efficiency, so once a pattern proves consistent, it is stored and repeated to conserve mental energy. This makes habits reliable, but also potentially limiting if they are rooted in unexamined beliefs. Positive habits do not require constant effort because they are reinforced through repetition rather than willpower. Over time, these patterns shape identity, causing behaviors to feel natural rather than forced. The quiet nature of habit formation means results often appear without a clear awareness of how they were produced. Small daily routines, practiced consistently, have a greater impact than occasional intense efforts because they condition the mind gradually and permanently. This is why lasting change rarely comes from sudden bursts of motivation, but from steady, repeated actions that align with desired outcomes. Habits influence decision-making speed, emotional regulation, and consistency, guiding behavior even in moments of stress or fatigue. When aligned with constructive goals, habits support progress effortlessly by removing friction and hesitation. When misaligned, they quietly reinforce stagnation without obvious warning. Understanding that habits are built in silence shifts focus from dramatic change to intentional repetition. By choosing small, deliberate routines and reinforcing them consistently, the mind absorbs them as natural behavior patterns. Over time, these habits reshape daily actions and long-term outcomes without struggle, resistance, or constant conscious intervention. Faith precedes results because inner conviction must exist before consistent action, and persistence can take form. The mind requires a sense of certainty to move forward without constant reassurance from external evidence. Faith is not blind belief, but an internal acceptance that a desired outcome is possible and attainable, even when present circumstances suggest otherwise. This internal certainty influences behavior long before results appear, shaping decisions, attitudes, and emotional responses. When faith is present, effort feels purposeful rather than forced, and setbacks are interpreted as temporary rather than final. The subconscious mind responds to faith as instruction, aligning thoughts and habits with the expectation of success. Without faith, actions become inconsistent, hesitation increases, and motivation depends on visible progress, which often arrives too late to sustain effort. Faith allows the mind to remain focused during periods of uncertainty, maintaining momentum when logic alone would advise retreat. It creates emotional stability, reducing fear and doubt that interrupt progress. The mind seeks coherence, betto, in belief and action. So when faith is strong, behavior naturally aligns with long-term objectives. This alignment produces consistency, which is essential for meaningful results. Faith also influences perception, causing the mind to notice opportunities and solutions that might otherwise be overlooked. When belief is absent, the same opportunities may appear risky or insignificant. Inner certainty shapes communication, confidence, and decision-making speed, all of which affect outcomes indirectly but powerfully. Faith does not eliminate challenges, but changes how they are approached, encouraging persistence rather than avoidance. The subconscious mind treats repeated expressions of faith as reality, reinforcing behaviors that support the belief. Over time, this creates a feedback loop where belief fuels action and action gradually produces evidence that strengthens belief further. Results follow faith because faith initiates the internal conditions required for sustained effort. Without this inner foundation, progress remains fragile and easily disrupted. Faith provides emotional endurance, allowing individuals to continue investing effort despite delayed gratification. It transforms desire into expectation and expectation into behavior. This internal state must come first because the mind cannot consistently act toward outcomes it does not believe in. Faith establishes the mental environment in which results become not only possible, but inevitable through aligned thought, emotion, and action. In conclusion, the journey to wealth does not begin with money, circumstances, or opportunity, but with the deliberate training of the mind. When you understand that your subconscious is always working, that repeated thoughts harden into beliefs, that clear desire gives direction, that emotion activates intention, that habits are quietly formed, and that faith must come before visible results, you gain control over the unseen forces shaping your life. Wealth then becomes less about struggle and more about alignment. By choosing what you think, feel, and focus on, especially in moments of stillness, you begin to shape outcomes naturally and consistently. The outer world eventually reflects the inner discipline you practice daily, often without noise or immediate reward, but always with precision. As you move forward, remember that lasting success is built patiently, reinforced nightly, and strengthened through belief and repetition. Stay consistent, stay focused, and trust the process you are creating within yourself. I wish you clarity in your goals, confidence in your path, and persistence in your efforts. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to invest in the most powerful asset you will ever own, your mind.